they both belong to the heart. When one, he hears the mentioning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and secondly, when the person hears the Quran recited, he has what? Wajala. Wajala is like this internal awe. This is what you get from this ayah. This is the characteristics of the believer. And Allah lists many more after this, like salah, zakah, increasing taqwa, and so on and so forth. And one major thing that is missing, one major ingredient that is missing in this time is tawakkul ala Allah. And this is what Allah says. He mentions that they have to do what? Yatawakkalun. That there are people who rely on their Lord. This is something that is absent and obsolete today. We put Allah Ta'ala in our affairs very minimal. Very minimal. We only remember Allah when we need something. When we're in a dire, desperate situation. We don't remember Allah Ta'ala when it comes to His commands. If it's something that's suitable for us, then we remember Allah. When I say remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what do I mean? By carrying out the actions that Allah tells you to carry out and staying away from those things that Allah Ta'ala prohibits you. Understand the nature of this dunya, the way that this dunya is set up, especially here. The way it's set up is to take you away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the whole objective. Whether it be khamr, some sort of intoxicants, whether it be women or men, it would take you away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You begin to forget the commands of Allah. And if you don't forget them, you purposely ignore them. Because of your nature, because of your rapacious nature, chasing it like a hungry wolf. The Quran is supposed to bring ease and humbleness to you. And it's supposed to melt the heart when you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, Allah did not have to create you. He could have left you in pure non-existence. Many of us all we are is just a thing that is to consider najis to some scholars. If these najis get on your clothing, this mani', this sperm, it get on your clothing, you can't pray in these clothing. This is what you are. You're an argument amongst the ulama. Whether you're pure or whether you're impure. Whether you're tahar, you're tuhur, or you're khabith. You're filth. This is what we are. And then Allah Ta'ala put us in this dunya and we begin to forget Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Then Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in one ayah in the same surah, a portion of this ayah, which you find very relevant, but it's something that is absent. If we do not commit ourselves to having tawakkul in Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and connecting ourselves to the Quran, we will never be able to benefit from what the Sahaba benefited from. Everything that we engage in is in order to distract you and take you away from that. See, the Sahaba, they were dedicated. Many of them used to be idol worshippers. While they remained in Mecca. Used to be. And the Kaaba was still there, and the idols were still there. The family that didn't talk to them was still there. The people who wouldn't do business with them was still there, and they still had love for them. But their love for Allah Ta'ala was greater. Where every day we're faced and encountered with all kinds of idols. All kinds of things that bring you to the disobedience to Allah. Those things that take you away from Allah. We're faced with it every day. And we're constantly failing. The people that went to Habasha, went to Abyssinia, they didn't go to Abyssinia because they were consumed with ma'asiyah. They weren't consumed with disobedience. They were weak. They were being beaten. They didn't have the family protection that other tribes had. Well, we're weak and we're being beaten by our own nafs. Many of our family is not even fighting against us because we're Muslim. Because our nafs, we blend right in. We fit right in. Think about it. Where is your struggle? Where is the Aina Mujahida? Where is the Mujahida? Aina khawfin lillah? Where is the fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Where has it gone? Where has it gone? Everything you see is backwards. Those who were believers, those who were born, raised up Muslim, are running away from the deen. Limada, why? mujahidat al-nafs. There's no fighting against the nafs. The urge is there. I do what I feel. They tell you that on your sneaker boxes. Just do it. They encourage you. They encourage you. Every year in the Caribbean, they have a season called hedonism. They have hedonism. And what are they doing this hedonism? Where they just walk around naked. They have sex if they want to have sex. They smoke marijuana if they want to smoke marijuana. They drink if they want to drink. And it's celebrated. They have smaller festivities that a lot of people engage in, even Muslims. Right? You go to New York, what do they have? They have the Caribbean parade. Women walk around naked with body paint on them. Right? Puerto Rican Day parade. There's always someone getting raped at these gatherings. Why? Because they're not observing the hudud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those limits that are set by Allah. And the Muslims, they get caught right up in it. Oh, I'm going out there because there's going to be a whole bunch of women. This shouldn't even be the attribute or the characteristic of the believer. The believer's supposed to be humble. He's supposed to believe and have absolute reliance and trust on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want to know where you at with your relationship with Allah? Let you become into some sort of hardship or let something become difficult for you. Then you'll know who you are and what you are and what's your relationship with Allah Azza wa Jalla. Then you'll know. Will I compromise my deen for this little bit of dunya? Where's my connection with Allah? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would spend his nights asking and pleading to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the people of Mecca. Pleading for them. Not so that he can be accepted, because many of us Muslims today, we want to be accepted by the kuffar. He wasn't worried about being accepted. He was worried about how can he deliver this message in a way that will permeate and penetrate the heart so that they'll worship Allah too. We have totally different objectives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this next ayat that I'm about to read, just a little background. It was an ayat that was revealed during the time of the Ghazwat of Badr, during the war of Badr. In this incident, this is one of the miracles that took place right in front of the eyes of the Sahaba. Radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. And then Allah revealed an ayat about it. But this also tells us, see, nowadays you have a problem with Muslims. Muslims don't believe in the karama. Those things that Allah permits some of the awliya to do. This was a fitna in the early part of the ummah. Some Muslims today, or so-called Muslims today, they don't believe in the mu'jizat of the anbiya. They don't believe in the miracles of the prophets. They accept them as just being some allegorical meaning. An example given, some of them claim that Isa ibn Maryam did not heal blind people, but what he did was he took them from the darkness of not knowing and brought them into the light of knowing. It didn't have nothing to do with literally. We Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, we believe that it happened literally. That is our belief. We don't have a problem with this, but you have to be careful because there's so much information out here in order to confuse you. In order to confuse you so that you don't have no connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the main thing is, if everyone was to shut down and stop reading all of this other different information and adhere to reading the Quran, they wouldn't have this problem. Because what's in the Quran is haqq. What's in the Quran is haqq. What does Allah tell you? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. What is in this book, there's no doubt in it. And it's a guidance for those who? Al-Muttaqeen. Those who are seeking guidance. Our confusion is our own fault. So anyway, during this Battle of Badr, they were under-equipped, and they were outnumbered. It was 1,000, some reports even say it was 1,100 to 313. They didn't have enough horses, they didn't have enough weapons, some of them only had sticks and stones. They didn't have enough weapons. And it wasn't planned, it happened suddenly. And so this incident that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran, He says, وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذَا رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنْ رَمَى وَلِيُبْلِيَ مُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْهُ بَلَا حَسَنًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said about this ayah was connected. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam grabbed 3 handfuls of dirt, threw it to the right, threw it to the left, and threw it to the center, and it reached all of the eyes of the disbelievers, blinding them. And as a result, Allah ta'ala also sent in the help of the malaika, and they defeated the kuffar. How could this happen if you don't have no tawakkul? How could this happen? The believers were permeated, they were firm in their belief. We're not firm today. We lose a job, we become depressed. Believers don't get depressed. The only thing that depresses the believer is the fact of dying without the kalima of La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. That's what we're concerned with. Dying and going to the fire. Dying or sad because we didn't have enough time to do more good deeds. This is what depresses the believer. But as for those who are weaker, those who are not as strong, those who Iman has some deficiency in it, what happens to him? He's moved and all over the place with every little loss and every little inch of dunya. I don't have a pair of new socks. I don't have a new wife. I don't have a new car. Oh, I'm going to die. Understand that this is a characteristic of those who disbelieve, because what did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? He said, "Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir." That this dunya is the prison for the believer. He's restricted. He can't have everything. He knows this. And it's the jannah for the disbeliever. It's like party time. This is why they create these Mardi Gras and hedonism and all these different things. And the only thing that we're taught is to party and have a good time. That's all we know. That's all we watch on television. Party, have a good time. All we read about. Party, have a good time. Never no tafakkur. No reflection. No dhikr. No remembrance. Right? We're always on the move. So understand this. When you understand this, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said about that. He said it wasn't you who threw, but it was Allah who threw in reality. The only thing that we do is do the action. The rest requires you to have tawakkul. Then what Allah say in the closing part of this ayah? He says, "Wali yublil mu'minina minhu." That He wanted to test the believers. He tested the believers. Think about it. What led up to this point? They were persecuted in Mecca. They were ostracized in Mecca. They were banned from Mecca only because they wanted to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah tested them. You have to understand the reality and the nature of this dunya. You will be tested. If you cry, this is a sign of your hypocrisy, of your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what it is. The believer endures hardship. No one had more hardship than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was poisoned. People tried to poison him, tried to kill him. He had to go on a run. He had Ali lay in his bed. None of us are facing that. What are we facing? Because we can't get a little dunya? We don't have total reliance on Allah. Once you gain that total reliance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be able to do the things like Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam, where he was thrown in the fire and Allah made the fire cool for him. Tawakkul. And if that fire burns you, then know it was only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's only good to come from it. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in closing, He said, Bala'un hasana. He wanted to give them a favor. Give them a favor. Allah favored them. Gave the believers a favor by testing them through all this persecution, giving them the ability to fight and gain victory. And gain victory. Die upon the kalimat of la ilaha illallah. These are all favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many of us look at these things are insufficient because it doesn't have a name brand idol on there of Nike or Jordan or things of this nature. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.